Hi, this is Perry from Shakti Designs. Today we're going to talk about wire weaving and some of my methods for doing it, and the particular weave that I'm going to choose to show you is what I call a ladder weave, meaning that it has long strands over both of these knitting needles. That's what I'm going to use to show you today because you can see it a little bit easier. There are long ones with short ones in between that you can see there. This one's the same on both sides. That's kind of a neat characteristic of this particular weave because you can look at it from both sides. It's great for pieces where the front and the back will be seen, or where certain wires get twisted back on themselves. They look the same in both situations. Some of the usual tools come in handy, especially wire cutters. We're not going to worry about that too much today because I'm just giving you the instructions for the actual wrapping. There is one little tool, or actually one or two little tools, that'll come in handy later on. Let me show you those. They are a pin vise with a needle in it. That's this one right here. And then there is a little thing that some people call an orange stick, some people call it a manicure stick. The deal is that it has a pointed end on one side and an angled end on the other. Let me come back in a little bit closer now for that. Yeah. We'll come down until we can see. Whoops, a little too far. There we go. So here you can see there's the angled end and there's the pointy end. The advantage is this is made out of wood. They make them out of plastic too, which are just as good. You can use these to straighten up your weaves without it marring your wire, without it putting tool marks all over your wire because it's soft. We'll talk about this a little bit later. So let's get started on exactly how to make this weave. The first thing that you want to do is to anchor your wire by just simply wrapping a couple of times around it. Now, when I wrap wire, I have a tendency I'm not holding on to this very tightly first off. That's a mistake. To manhandle your wire like that just makes it brittle, and it also makes it just a little bit more difficult to handle, in my personal opinion. So one of the ways that I get it tight, even when I'm coiling, doesn't matter what I do, is I kind of push it. I angle it towards the existing work or back towards my non-dominant hand. I'm right-handed. I'm sorry if you guys have to flip this in order to figure it out. I don't know how to do that any other way. Maybe view it upside down? I'm not sure. So anyway, I'm kind of moving this wire, and when I do it, I'm angling it back like this towards the existing work. The tendency is for it to want to move forward, so I'm going to go ahead and angle it backwards. Okay, it's all nice and anchored now. So now I'm going to add in the second wire, aka knitting needle in this case. And we start the actual pattern for this particular weave. It goes over two, and then I make just a simple bend. And by the way, I've just let go of it. You can see that with my hands here. And it's staying directly in place. Then I go up this way, but I go in between the two wires, straighten it up, and then back over two. You go in between and over the top, back behind two, over the top and in between, straighten her up, back over two, and to the back, in between, and over the back, in between. Whoops, didn't get in between that time. In between. And again, I'm angling it. You can see that I'm angling it towards the existing work and over the top. I'm going to compress it every chance I can get, in between and over, behind both, in between, and around the bottom, over both, bring it to the back, in between, over the top, to the back, over the bottom, in between and over the bottom, and then over. So you can see that I'm alternating long carries with short carries, right? The other thing, whoops, gosh. The other thing that you can probably see, I'm not quite sure if it's really noticeable, is how these, you can barely see them on the camera, but can you see these little gaps right here, like this? The reason this is happening is because these two knitting needles are too close together. And when you start working, you are always working. Let's use the orange stick for this one. You're always working going this way, okay? So what happens is when this space between here isn't large enough, this wire, when it gets placed, sits really, really close to the long one. The next one on this side comes around the bottom, and the top one stops it from getting any closer to the long one on this side. Let me show you while we're working how that works. So I'm going to come in here and see how that sits really, really close, right? That's because there's a long one in between. There is no wrap around this to stop it, and it comes in really, really close. And when I bring it around and I come this way, and now I want to make a full rotation here. The bottom one actually stops it. This top one here, there's a long one here, and now I'm going to take it around the bottom again. It's nearly always just on one side. See how it's really, really tough for me to get it in there really close, because the top wire is stopping it? That's the usual way. People get really frustrated with this weave and they say, oh, why doesn't it look all nice and tight and smooth? This is the reason. Luckily, you can make that go away. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. Now, the way that you make that go away is to add space enough for two wires to sit one on top of each other in between your frames. So let me give myself an anchor again. And I'm going to show you how I do that. Some people, if your wire is small enough, and my knitting needles are not, okay, if your wire is small enough, then you can put a bead or a large hole bead on your frame wire here, and to hold the space apart. But I don't have that option. So what I did is I chose a piece of wire. This is 18 gauge. That's roughly double the size of this 24 gauge that I'm using to weave. And what I'm going to do is stick it in here to hold. This is a little tricky at first, but I'm going to stick it in. I'm going to stick it in here to hold the space, and then just bend right there. I can then move it completely out of the way because that bend is in exactly the right place. Gosh, I keep moving this out of your way, out of your sight. That bend is in exactly the right place, and all I have to do is push it over like this. And then back down. Let me put my little wire keeper back here. Like I said, you can do this with a bead if a bead works, but a bead won't work on knitting needles very easily. So, bring this in here to hold that interval, make that bend just like that. Gosh, I keep getting that migraine. It's like my fingers want to move out of your way so you can't see. This holds the space. We come back here, bring it out here, put it between. Once you get it started so that there is enough space in between, this isn't so fiddly anymore. Here, there. And the only time we really need it is on the long carries, so pull it back that way, move it out of the way, hang on to it, pull it between and over. Put this puppy back to maintain the right spacing. Behind. Whoops, it went in between. This isn't the easiest way of doing it. If you've got smaller if you've got smaller wire, definitely use a bead. So we've got that spacing. We come back here, take this off, here. And let me push this together with the orange stick because that's what it's for. And you'll notice those sit really, really close on one another. And you don't get that same gapping that you did before. Once you get it started, you can hold it as far as it needs to be. And it will just stay in the proper spacing. If ever you feel like they're not sitting, my trusty acrylic nails actually help me do this. It's a little bit easier. There's that. Over the top, around the back, through the center, and over again. And come down here, over through the center. And again, you can use this. And again, over the top. I have a tendency not to flip my work when I do this, even though it is double-sided. I like to work from one side just so I can see what's going on. I figure if the front side, since they're the same, if the front side's doing what it needs to do, then the back side's doing what it needs to do. So I don't flip it over. Although, if I'm going really, 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 really fast, I put it in a little clamp. Put my wires in a little clamp, like that. And then just flip and flip.